Forbes Books presents Sustainable Leadership and Disruptive Growth with David Radlow. Transformation for a new and better world. Here's David.
Joining me this week is Scott Svenson, the co-founder and CEO of Mod Pizza. After founding and selling a couple of businesses across the pond, he and his wife returned to the Pacific Northwest, where they became inspired to create a family-friendly restaurant that was fast, healthy, and affordable. So in 2008, they opened their first Mod Pizza in downtown Seattle, and Pizza with a Purpose was born. Scott, thanks for joining me on this podcast.
Well, thank you for having me.
Scott, I'm excited to talk to you about the great work you're doing with Mod. Let's step back and talk about the journey that you took to get there. Like I mentioned in the open, this is not your first business. When did you fall in love with entrepreneurship, incubation, and acceleration of growth?
Well, that's a interesting question. My journey into entrepreneurship goes back to a time after I graduated from college. I spent some time in New York City and ended up in London working for an investment bank. And my wife now, who was my girlfriend at the time, I convinced to move over to London. And when she landed, she quickly identified a whole range of things that the English really needed but were lacking. And right at the top of the list was an American-style coffee experience similar to Starbucks. And for many years, we talked about the fact that there should be a Starbucks-style coffee experience in England. And we eventually decided to do something about it. And that really started our entrepreneurial journey. And I never really thought of myself growing up as being a naturally born entrepreneur, but as soon as we had this idea in our minds and were inspired to bring it to life and then tasted what that felt like, we knew we were never turning back.
That's great. We all learn from our failures. I know I've certainly in business failed enough, but fortunately we've been able to succeed a little more than we failed, so life goes on. How'd you learn from them, and how'd you use them to build Seattle Coffee and Carlucci's in the UK?
Well, yeah, I'm a big believer in what you might call the growth mindset, which is looking at setbacks and failures and obstacles as opportunities to learn, grow, and improve versus some type of a message that you're not good enough. And like you said, we've had our fair share of failings. But very early on, we developed a mindset that failure is not an option. And failing is the price you pay to kind of find the right path and to learn and improve. But while failing is part of the process, accepting failure and giving up is just not acceptable. And we had so many examples of trying things that didn't work and kind of needing to kind of continue to refine and develop our path. Seattle Coffee Company was our first entrepreneurial endeavor. And frankly, we just didn't know what we didn't know. And I look back on it now, and there are so many things that we did that I kind of laugh at now. But we needed to try it ourselves. We needed to make the mistakes. And it ended up working out. But very, very few entrepreneurial paths are straight and clean and without plenty of messes that need to be cleaned up along the way. And that certainly has marked our journey.
Going through that exercise, when you decided that you were going to sell your first fast casual coffee chain, Seattle Coffee, could you please explain how you went through exit plans and strategy?
Yeah, so Seattle Coffee Company was started because my wife and I really felt there was a need for a gourmet Starbucks-style coffee experience in the UK. At the time, there was nothing like it. We very much felt compelled to fill that void, less about building a business, more about bringing a product and an experience to the UK that we just felt was missing. There was a hole in the market that we wanted as a consumer. And so when we started to build the business, it wasn't with the mindset of building something to sell or building something that was motivated by a desire to create entrepreneurial success. It was very much motivated by the desire to fill this need. And what ended up happening as a result is we built a business that was, I think, very attractive to a potential owner. And we were getting ready to go public. We had built the business to enough size and scale, and we needed the capital to continue growing. And we were approached to take the company public, and we're going down that path when Starbucks approached us. And then we had the very typical decision to make between which companies, as they're ready to go public, often have to decide between selling the company and going public. And because of our experience of starting the company, really having been inspired by Starbucks and really looking up to them as being a company that motivated us and that we respected, it was a pretty easy decision for us to decide to join forces with them. A lot of people after the fact gave us more credit than we were due, that we had built this business plan that had us building a business that we could then sell to Starbucks, because it all just sounded such an ideal strategy. The reality is that was not our plan, and it was more dumb luck than it was designed from the beginning. But the thing I would say is we built a great business that multiple people were interested in owning, and that provided us with options. So in terms of exit planning, I've always believed in the saying, build a business like you never plan on selling it. And if you do, you'll build a business that a lot of people want to own.
Did you finance the first ventures in the UK? Did you help with friends and family, or was it patient money, or just on the financial side? Could you kindly take me through that?
Sure. All of the money we raised as we were building Seattle Coffee Company in the UK was raised from what I would call value add, high net worth friends and family. People who we felt not only could bring the capital to help us grow, but that could bring experience and expertise to help us be more successful. And we were very thoughtful about surrounding ourselves with people who had experiences that we didn't have. So we were fortunate to be able to attract that type of capital. And we never raised institutional capital for Seattle Coffee Company, but brought a bunch of people to the table without whom I don't think we would have had the success that we did. People who, my wife and I started the Seattle Coffee Company, and neither of us had ever worked in coffee or retail prior to starting the business. So, we had a lot to learn, and we consciously surrounded ourselves with people who could help teach us.
Well, that's smart. Just shifting to the U.S. Why pizza? Big market, yes. Lots of competition. Going back to your initial development of your value proposition and competitive analysis, what did you see with Mod Pizza that was going to hit the trends of a fast-growing segment of a very large market?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and I would just maybe frame it up in the context that everything that my wife and I have done, and we've done it together as partners, has been put through the lens of, is this a concept or an experience that we desperately want to see brought to life? As opposed to focusing on market analysis or customer insights, we did it very much through the lens of, is this something that we think would make our lives and our community's life better? And so that's certainly what motivated us with Seattle Coffee Company. It's very much what motivated us when we helped build Carluccio's, which was an Italian deli cafe concept that we helped build in the UK after we sold Seattle Coffee Company. And then we moved back to Seattle, and we had no intention of getting back into multi-unit restaurants or retailing. We'd had 2 magical experiences, felt very fortunate, and just assumed that if we tried it a third time in an industry that's notoriously fickle and difficult to have success, that we would screw it up. But we were approached by people with different ideas for concepts over the years. And my wife and I have had a long-running love affair of Italy and all things Italian. So we were approached by someone who suggested we look at the pizza industry and approach it differently. With the novel idea at the time was applying the fast casual service format to pizza. Pizza is the second largest food restaurant category in the United States behind hamburgers. Categorized or characterized, I should say, as being highly fragmented and suffering from a real lack of innovation over the last 30 years. Initially, we pushed back because we didn't want to get back in the industry. We feared that we would not be successful. And it was only through being kind of drawn into this Italian food category that we had these magical experiences in the many trips that we've made to Italy of having fabulous, what we would call Italian street food, simple, flavorful, fabulous food that was not too complicated. And we started to dream up this idea of, could we bring that type of an experience to a fast casual service format? And that's what really drew us in and convinced us to try it in one location and take what we had in our mind's eye and see if we could build one location so that we could take an experience, pizza, that is normally an hour-long sit-down, slow cooked product, and convert it into an experience where you could have a product made just for you that's high quality, but made super fast at a really fabulous price point, and light and healthy enough so that you could eat it for lunch or dinner. This kind of discovery process that we went through really inspired us to say, let's give this a shot. And that one location and the feedback we then got from customers and what we saw led us to then open 3 more in Seattle. And that was just the journey that we went on. We didn't do thorough market research. We didn't do any customer focus groups. We did look and see that this was a huge market and that there seemed to be an opportunity, but it was only then through, putting it through the lens of, was this something we would use? Is this something our family would use? And then literally opening one and playing with it and having a laboratory for a year to get real feedback and real insights that we ultimately concluded this is something we wanted to dedicate ourselves to building.
You noted with your first test in Seattle, what early stage challenges and modifications did you make during that process of that 1 year?
Oh, wow. There were literally dozens, if not hundreds, of things that we tried and refined and changed, from the way we laid the stores out to the production process, to how we set up our labor scheduling and deployment, to the way we made our dough, to the menu. It was truly a laboratory where we explored what the customer proposition should look like, our pricing, ultimately what the unit economics looked like. And then ultimately, once we got to a point where we said, okay, we can make this business work, and the customer response has been really positive, the last piece for us was, why do it? Building a startup is really hard work. We had done it multiple times before, and we were at a comfortable stage in our life where we didn't need to. And so answering that last question, the why behind the business, became the most important and profound part of the journey for us, which was ultimately deciding that we could use this business as a platform to make a profound and sustainable positive social impact. And when we landed on that, having seen that we could build a product and an experience that customers really loved and that we could make money doing it, it was that last piece that brought it all together for us and convinced us that this is something we should really commit to.
Your mod purpose-driven model has been recognized as a champion of diversity, women, and millennials. Tell me about this model and how you tie your sustainable efforts, great product quality and taste, to revenue and giving back.
Yeah, so this really gets to what we believe is the real sustainable competitive advantage of Mod and why it is we exist. And very simply put, Mod exists to serve people in order to contribute to a world that works for and includes everyone. And the way we do that is by providing community and opportunities to people who are dedicated to serving others. And for us, building a multi-unit retail business allowed us a platform to employ people. And we chose to focus on employing people who otherwise had barriers to employment. That's where we felt we could really lean in to contribute and give back to every community in which we operated. Because you think about people in the community you live, there are people in that community who have been justice involved, have been incarcerated. There are people in that community who are what we call opportunity youth, those between the ages of 18 and 24 who are not employed and not in school, and if not given a path or an opportunity, may well end up in jail or in prison. There are people with intellectual and development disabilities. There are people that are homeless that are looking for an opportunity to get back on their feet. There are many categories of people who would otherwise have a barrier to employment and therefore a barrier to being contributing productive members of society. And we decided that, through the simple platform of a pizza business, we could provide opportunities to them and therefore contribute positively to our communities. And it's been a magical formula for us because, we have a saying, just because your past may well describe you, but it doesn't need to define you. We've all made mistakes in life, but what matters most is what we do next. And we wanted to give people an opportunity, a platform or an opportunity to make that decision to give back and contribute to society and into their communities in a productive way. And today, about 40% plus or minus of our employees are what we would consider to be impact hires, people who otherwise have barriers to employment. They have been some of the most loyal, productive, important members of our family because they were given an opportunity at Mod that they didn't think that they'd otherwise get. And they have paid that back multiple times over in terms of their loyalty, their commitment, their work ethic. And that has really been an incredible source of energy and kind of a positive part of our culture. And it's really the thing that, more than anything else, I would ascribe to the success we've had and the energy that we've had to grow. Part of our story is that over the last 6 years, prior to the pandemic, we were growing incredibly rapidly. We were the fastest growing restaurant brand in the country for 4 consecutive years. And the reason for that was because every time we open a restaurant, we were able to employ another 20 to 30 people. And the team that exists at Mod today understands the power of our employment practices. They understand the power of our culture. And they know that if we continue to grow, we'll give more opportunities to the existing team to take on new challenges and to grow in their career. And we'll have an opportunity to bring another team of Mod Squatters into the business with all the potential that represents to be able to make a positive difference in their life.
We're bridging into moving from something that was very successful in test and a regional business to acceleration. So putting on your acceleration hat, please tell us how you successfully accelerated with the appropriate financing and managing all things, the people, process, and strategy to achieve your operational, really blockbuster success on growth that you just mentioned.
Yeah, so it probably helps frame up a little bit of the journey that we've traveled. For the first 5 years of our business, we're about 13 years old now. And the first 5 years, it was all about figuring things out and designing the concept, understanding our unit economics, and really developing this purpose that we've talked about. And so on our 5th birthday, we had 12 stores in the greater Seattle market. We were still, like you said, a very small regional brand. We decided at that point, given everything we'd seen in the 12 stores here, that we had an opportunity to build a national brand. We had long conversations about, should we keep it regional, lead a comfortable life, grow slowly, raise limited amounts of outside capital, be able to drive to every store and not have it become too disruptive to our life? Or should we take a big swing and build a true national brand? And the team at Mod at the time sat around a table and we decided that very rarely in life do you have an opportunity to do something big, and particularly with the purpose, something as profound as we were setting out to do. And so we decided to take a big swing. And over the next 5 years, we went from 12 stores in Western Washington to 400 stores spread across over 70 markets throughout the United States. And so that was a period of time when we knew that to build a national brand, we needed to be first mover and market share leader in markets throughout the United States. And so everything about our strategy at the time was about financing the business, building the infrastructure to be able to get out and get into a lot of markets. It was frenetic. It was incredibly hard work. And we raised a lot of capital. To your point, we actually brought in institutional capital at the time. To date, we've raised over $340 million of equity to support the growth. And that period of time was kind of a formative period where we went from being a Seattle brand to being a national brand, and we did it in 5 years, which is almost unheard of. But we felt like we had an opportunity, and we needed to build the platform to capture the opportunity and to be the leader in this market, because we felt that would give us the ability to then really build something sustainable and something that would allow us to fulfill our potential to contribute to a world that works for and includes everyone. Since then, we're now in the third 5-year chapter of our story. And this third 5-year chapter has been marked by two things. One, a commitment to now building out all of those markets, maturing those markets, and building the economic scale into the platform that we know will allow us the fuel to keep growing. And it's also been marked by the pandemic. Sometimes in life you get confronted with challenges and obstacles that you never anticipated. And I'll tell you, 2020 was that in a big way for us. But that's been kind of the sequencing of how we built the business. And that middle chapter of growth was the thing that's really set us up to be the business that I think will be in the long term.
All right, Scott, we got to stop right here. But coming up in the second part of my conversation with Scott Svenson, the co-founder and CEO of Mod Pizza, Scott shares his thoughts on how hard it is to be a successful leader.
It's easy if you're pursuing a worthy, meaningful end and you're consistent with living the values and beliefs in a way that's authentic and consistent. And on the one hand, that can be very easy to keep it simple and focused. On the other hand, it's so hard to do that day to day, week to week.
To connect with David, go to davidradlow.com. David's book, Principles of Cartel Disruption, Accelerate and Maximize Performance, is now available wherever books are sold. This has been Sustainable Leadership and Disruptive Growth with David Radlow, a presentation of Forbes Books.